Hi, Democrats. Today is Wednesday, May 17th, and it's time for the Chair's Daily Live. Happy Wednesday. So today in history, there's a lot of days to mark today. First, today is International Day of against transphobia, homophobia, and biphobia Day. So in honor, I am actually wearing a t-shirt on my live, which is a thing I don't do. But I want to honor and acknowledge the day. Another day that it is. Today is the 69th anniversary of Brown versus the Board of Topeka, Kansas. We always call it Brown or Brown versus the Board of Education. And what there were a lot of those. We learned, Plessy Ferguson, blah, blah, blah. But Brown versus the Board of Education basically said separate but equal isn't a thing. And we're talking about education. They were saying that kids didn't need to be educated together and that we needed to have separate but equal education systems, schools, and all that kind of good stuff. But Brown versus Board of Education basically said if they're separate, they are most likely never going to be equal. And this resonates right now with what is happening in our nation and in our state with regards to education. In our state, there's this big fight for vouchers. There's this big fight for public tax dollars to go to support private and charter schools. And I think in our state, we've worked out a deal where instead of handing over the money as like a scholarship or as a voucher, or as I like to call it, a coupon, now we're going to make people fill it out on their taxes. But the end result will still be separate and unequal schools. That will still be the end result. It will be separate and unequal schools. I liken it to not just separate and unequal, but when they take the money out of the funding formula, there will be some districts that will be decimated, and those children will be doomed to leftover schools. Those students will be doomed to schools with old textbooks where the system isn't modernized, and the kids whose parents can afford them to send them to the private school will have the nice new shiny technology, nice new shiny buildings, nice new shiny books. And the kids left in the public schools that we all pay our tax dollars into will be doomed to unequal, unequipped, leftover schools. And so I think that it's ironic, and I think that it's worth mentioning that while our state is crowing, bragging about the fact that they got through their voucher scheme by calling it a tax credit, by them bragging and celebrating the fact that folks who can afford to send their kids to $10,000 a year private schools just now got a discount, that we are turning the clock back to pre-Brown versus Board of Education for Topeka, Kansas. That's a 69-year-old case. We haven't learned the lesson. We haven't learned the lesson. That is a lesson 69 years ago. It's not super long ago. But this is what happens when you refuse to teach full history. This is what happens when you have the conversation about limiting history. And so folks are afraid to talk about all of history. And then you get to decide that it wasn't really history. And we all know what happens. Those who do not learn from their history are doomed to repeat it. Do we really need to go back to separate and unequal schools before we learn that lesson? Maybe we do, because this isn't just a fight in Oklahoma. I take it personally because it is a fight in Oklahoma, but this is a fight that's going on all over the nation. They are insistent on dumbing down our schools. They are insistent on creating a caste system. They are insistent on making sure that we know who the haves and the have-nots are in every situation, even in public education, even in the education that our tax dollars pay for. I'm annoyed, but I needed to share that with you guys because we don't talk about it. So not only are we going back 70 years in our education system, but Oklahoma has been named by Wallet Hub as the worst place to raise kids. Maybe it's because we're getting ready to have separate and unequal schools. Or if we are now the worst, what is going to happen when we have separate and unequal schools? Oklahoma currently we're ranked number 12 in the rudest kids in the country. I see that improving. I don't. I do not see that improving when their parents are going out of their way to make sure that they feel entitled. It's scary, folks. It is a scary place to be right now, and all of this is working its way through our legislature, which means it's time for me to put in my beg, my plea, my urge. Not only should you be registered to vote, but everybody you know should be registered to vote. And when they tell you their vote doesn't count, or why does it matter, or they vote on the things that matter, remind them that everything matters. And the thing that you don't vote on today will come and bite you later. The thing that you vote wrong on today will come back and bite you later. Our gas, how much we pay for natural gas, goes through the legislature. Well, it goes through the Corporation Commission, which are people that we elect. How our kids are educated somehow goes through the legislature. It goes through the people we elect. Which roads get fixed in town when? That's our city council. It goes through people we elect. It all, just your regular life, is affected by what happens at the ballot box. So I encourage you. Make sure that everybody you know, and it's just a regular conversation. I have it everywhere I go. You registered to vote? Okay. Make sure that everybody you know is registered to vote, and make sure that everybody you know stays registered to vote, because as I mentioned earlier in the week, that the election board has sent out address verification postcards because they're getting ready to do another purge. So make sure everybody you know, ask them if they got their address verification postcard, and then ask them if they've sent it back. We all must send them back so we don't get purged off the voter rolls. We all must participate. Every time our precinct is open, we should be there casting a ballot, or have already cast our ballot because we voted early in person or through absentee ballot. We all must vote every time. I just got back, which is why I was a little late. I got to chit-chatting at the Tulsa County Election Board. And I heard some super distressing news, and I'm going to share it with you because I hope that it makes an impact. In the election that we had in Tulsa County in February, 3% of Tulsa's population, so that's not just registered voters, but 3% of Tulsa's population participated in that election. 3. Not 30, 3. 3% of our entire population participated in that election. We can do better. We have to do better. So please, you know what, Chrissy Ward? So do I. I have voter registration forms in my car. And I hope that we all have voters registrations in our forms in our car. And when we go through the drive-through, ask the person. Don't be rude. Don't try to tell them how to register. Ask them if their voter registration is up to date. And then reach in the back, grab your little form, and give them a form. We all have to make sure that everybody we encounter is registered to vote and understands how to participate and knows where they can go and ask the questions. 3% of the population participating in an election is shameful. And so for those people who aren't moved by that, maybe you'll be moved by dollars. They spend the same amount of money, energy, and effort, whether 3% or 100% of the people who show up. So when only 3% of our population shows up, the cost per voter is insane. The cost per voter is insane. Please participate. Make them earn our dollars. Make them spend our dollars wisely. All righty. Thanks for joining me. And I'll be back here tomorrow at 4:15. You guys have a great evening.